Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast. This is episode 2025.1. We are in 2025, and as usual, I'm joined with my good friend Phil. Hey, Phil.
Hey, Rohan. How you doing? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And it's actually New Year's Day when, well, at least for me, when we're recording this. But yes, definitely Happy New Year. As usual, this episode is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabukasa. Easily access your local Home Assistant instance remotely for a small monthly fee that supports the Home Assistant and ESP Home projects, along with a bunch of other stuff too. And configuration is done by the user interface, so there's no fiddling with router settings, SSL certificates, or any YAML. Phil, we've got a couple of headlines today.
We do. I thought, start off New Year. Let's get some housekeeping stuff out the way first before we get into 2025.1. First one is actually a pretty good one. The Home Assistant project, Nabukasa, everyone, they've released a community survey. I think if you're an active user of Home Assistant, it would be nice of you to complete. I completed it. It took me about 20, 30 minutes. It's a type form. They ask, one question at a time. Pretty basic stuff. The entries close by the 20th of January. So if you listen to this podcast after the 20th of January, time has probably run out. But before then, if you can, please have a look at the survey. It's not, not feature requests or anything like that. It's more Nabukasa and Home Assistant trying to understand who is using Home Assistant, who's interacting with Home Assistant, so that they can further drive where product decisions are going to be made. So they want to know, are you working in IT? Do you not work in IT? Who interacts with Home Assistant at the home? If you've got kids, not kids? Do you have pets? What sort of integrations are you using? I think it's basically you give up as much information as you want to give out. It can be anonymous. You don't have to, put in your mother's maiden name and all that fancy stuff, what blood type you are. They don't care about that. They just want to know, they just want to be open and say, look, tell us what you're willing to share with us so that we can make the product better or make Home better in this case.
Yeah, and I suspect it's going to drive some product decisions as well, right? Like what do people care about if everyone says, hey, I care about using AI in my smart home, cool, then maybe they'll focus more on that. Or if they say, hey, we really want to do more voice stuff, they might focus more on that. So I'm guessing, again, this isn't official in any sense. This is Rohan's best guess at what they're going to do with that information. But and I think it's also good for people that build a product to know how people use their product. So it's good that they're actually doing that.
And there's things there too, like they're like asking for ages, what ages are in the smart home, right? Do you have pets? Or I'm thinking like if a majority of households have pets, then maybe there would be some more features around pets in the future, right? For example,
Home Assistant pet tag.
Yeah, there you go. Compatible with the BLE proxy.
There you go.
Right.
All right. And on other news, CES is approaching, and for the first time ever, we will be there. And it's also going to be the first time Phil and I are actually physically meeting in person.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because we've been doing this podcast for what feels like forever.
The part of 10 years, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So CES, it's going to be happening. I mean, as of this recording, our Sunday, so a couple of days from now, I'll be flying down on the 5th and back on the 10th. And hopefully we're hoping to get some content out for folks as well, just based on what we're seeing. Obviously, almost all going to be Home Assistant focused. Maybe there'll be, a couple of sprinkling of other stuff too, of stuff that we found interesting or thought, that we thought was cool. And if you're a Patreon, you'll obviously get a lot of that stuff earlier and hopefully be ahead of the curve in terms of knowing what is coming out.
And if you've got something that you want us to look at too, do shout out, let us know, either on the socials, in the comments somewhere. If there's, someone's going to be at CES and you want to try and get us to take a look at it from a Home Assistant perspective, we'd love to look at that too.
Yeah. I've actually had a couple of folks reach out to me, just folks that I know that I've told already that we're going to CES and stuff that said, hey, I'd love to, I've got this problem. I'd love to know if there's, you see something related to that, right? Obviously you try and keep it smart home focused because CES is a big show.
Yeah.
And we may not be able to get to everything, but we will do our level best. But yeah, shoot us a message on I don't know, whatever socials you have us on, Twitter or YouTube, comment on this video and let us know.
Rohan, we were in an awkward position in terms of release cycles for our podcast. That just after our Frank episode went out last in December, Home Assistant launched the Home Assistant Voice Preview Edition. And Rohan, we've been very lucky as part of the Creators Network that Nabukasa have sent us a few of these back in October, November to test out. I've been throwing my Aussie accent at this thing, trying to break it as best as I can. So unfortunately, we couldn't talk about it before it was officially announced. But Rohan, I'd be interested to know, have you been using the voice assistant, and what are your initial thoughts on the Home Assistant voice?
I have, yeah. So, I mean, one of the things to clarify is, I know, we said they sent us several. They sent Phil and I each one, right?
Oh,
Right.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
mine has been in my office, and I haven't been using it for the last few days because I was off for the holidays. But other than that, I have been using it whenever I'm in here. Obviously, I don't know, I'm in here 8+ hours a day ish, right? On average, and whatever I want to use. I do have an Amazon Echo. Where'd it go? It's behind me somewhere. Right there. It's behind me. And while I'm in this room, I do use this. I mean, right now I just disconnected it, but just to, kind of show on YouTube for those of you watching what it looks like, what the size is, kind of the form factor. But yeah, so that is something I have been using, and it's pretty good overall. Honestly, the completion is way better than my my Amazon Echoes. So I've been very happy with that. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it is almost perfect, which is pretty good.
And what do you mean by completion there?
When I say the keyword and or the wake word, and it actually responds, and then it actually does what I want it to do.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
It's been fairly accurate. I'd say, I don't know, 90 to 95% of the time, versus my Amazon Echoes, which honestly, if you ask my wife, it's probably averaging about 30 to 35%.
Yep.
Of where it even responds to us, and then on top of that, where it responds accurately. Right. So, and I'm right there with her too. She's not doing anything wrong. She's like, add tomatoes to any list, and it'll add it to its own shopping list, which we don't use, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, a lot of issues on that front. So I'm very hopeful for a Home Assistant voice project. Obviously, there are a few other offshoots of this coming out based on ESP32. And based on this a similar type of hardware. This hardware is open source. I don't know. Maybe we'll get our hands on that too and play around with some of those things and see what they have. I do have it backing on to Gemini as well.
Ooh,
so
nice.
so Google Gemini. So if I say turn on the lights, it'll turn on the lights. If I say, I don't know, how big is the CN Tower, it'll I don't actually know what the response to that, but it will answer that question for me, right? So that is pretty nice, and that's been working fairly well. I had one or two where it was like, I can't answer that question, which was like, hey, what's the weather outside, for example? Which obviously I do bring that into Home Assistant, so it should have been able to say that, but maybe it didn't recognize outside, or maybe the states didn't get sent properly, or something like that.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, that's cool. I think for me, like similar to you, I only sent one unit, so it's in my office on my desk here. I do use it while I'm in this room, but it's not out in the other parts of the house, just because I think it's still a very early product. It does look nice, I will say that, but I don't think it's. I don't know. It's still a bit too plasticky for me. I do like the Amazon Echo fabric texture to it, I guess.
I was going to say there's actually some 3D print models out there too. There's been a couple, including I believe Nabukasa or Home Assistant actually put out this model, So you can actually go in and either 3D print it in your own colors or whatever you want. So maybe you don't like the transparent back or the clear back and the frosted, whatever it's called. So you can actually go in, remove the internals, and build your own, and then do that way. And or take that STL, modify it, and say, hey, you know what, I don't know, put in little clamps for stretching fabric across it, and or maybe you have some kind of paintable material and you want it to blend in with your wall or whatever. I don't know, whatever, right? Like, I think you can get creative with it, and I don't remember where I saw this, but I did see instructions of like, hey, I think it was on the model that on printables that I saw when I searched Home Assistant Voice PE, and their instructions in there literally say, hey, this is how you take it apart. So you can even go in, create your own thing, take it apart, and pop it back together.
But that's one of the favorite things I like about this product, right? Is that, it is open source and there is going to be, this is the first iteration, right? Like this is like the beta unit. It is called Preview Edition for a reason. I think the speaker in the device is a little lacking. If you ever had
Yeah.
an Amazon Echo version, a dot version 2 or a dot version 1, the speaker was very tinny. I would say this is
Yeah.
worse than that Echo version. But it does have a 3.5 mil audio output, so you can plug it into a better speaker, which is something I might look at doing.
Yeah. Which is fine. And you can take it and you can have maybe even, again, 3D print an enclosure uh, for that, right? To say, hey,
Yeah.
this is the speaker with all of this stuff.
I do have a because I have an Amazon Echo Dot. I actually had, when they first came out, everyone was like, "Oh, this is the future." So there was a lot of secondary devices came around, and I have an Amazon Echo portable speaker that you plug a Dot into. So it's got two cords at the top, 3.5 mil audio jack to plug the Dot into for its audio, and then a USB mini micro USB charging port for the Dot. Plug it all in, turn the speaker on. It then gives power to the Dot, and it's like a portable, Roam Bluetooth speaker essentially with voice control. It would be cool if I could somehow chop the mini micro USB on the end of it and make it USB C, and then make it compatible with this. That would be ideal. Yeah.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm very impressed. I won't say his name. I can't say his name anymore. But the Iron Man
Yeah. There's
voice
too
assistant
many
is in
people
my
have.
room now. Is in my room. I love, every time I say his name and he goes, it just chimes in. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
I
impressed.
love it. And for those of you looking, I did find the link of the 3D printed enclosure, whatever. We'll stick that in the show notes. I already put it in the notes there. So
Nice, well done.
let's talk some new features. Uh, so first and foremost, automated backups. So obviously backups have been around in Home Assistant. It's not a new thing. It's been around for a little bit. However, if you're familiar with backing up, whether it's personal, enterprise, whatever it is, there's a rule called 3-2-1, right? So it's three. You want three backups in two locations, and one of them must be off-site. Um, so like for example, like I use a third-party service to back up. I store all my stuff on my NAS. And obviously, I might have a local copy and it's on my NAS. And then for that, NAS also gets backed up to a third party uh, provider who encrypts it and blah blah blah. So same kind of deal. That's typically best practice, right? So for home automation, or so sorry, for home assistant backups, there's now an onboarding flow. So what happens is first thing it does, it prompts you for an encryption key. Now the reason for this is obviously privacy first, right? So you want to make sure your stuff is encrypted, and as you're backing up to I don't know, whatever, wherever it is you're going, maybe it's Google Drive, maybe it's something else, you do want that data to be backed up, sorry, you do want that data to be encrypted, just in case, again, you don't know, maybe your Google account will get compromised, or, Backblaze or CrashPlan or whoever you're using, right? That might get compromised. So you don't want that necessarily to go away, because again, a lot of things that might get backed up might be your API keys, might be, your Spotify credentials, whatever that looks like, right? Um, so once that happens, then basically the idea is don't trust wherever it is getting stored. So you encrypt it yourself that you own. And then after the database schedules have been run, daily or weekly options can be set up there. And then you can basically say, hey, how many backups do you want to keep and what do you want to back up? Right. So do you want to back up media, add-ons, all of that kind of stuff? Now, here's where it gets pretty cool. If you have a Nabukasa account, you can actually store your backup into the Nabukasa cloud. I believe you're limited to 5 gigs. So, you might not want to back up your MP3s on there or movies or whatever. But again, this is meant for your actual Home Assistant configs, maybe your Zigbee database, the radio database, all that stuff. Back up all of that stuff onto there. And again, you don't necessarily, if you don't want to pay for a third-party provider or whatever, you can say, hey, just turn it on turn it on with your Nabukasa subscription, and it will automatically go up to the cloud and get saved up there. The cool thing is, because you own the encryption key, nobody at Nabukasa can actually see that. Not that they'd necessarily want to, but even if, I don't know, there's a rogue employee, something like that, they're saying, hey, I want to go look at Phil's config for some reason. They can't do that because it is encrypted and you own that key. The counter side of that is, if you lose that key, that might be a problem and you might not be able to recover that backup. So backup locations can also be extended, which means any future integrations can be set to be a backup location. So what that means is, today there might be a Google Drive or something like that. Tomorrow, maybe you say, hey, Phil has his own provider that he just built and you want to back it up to Phil's cloud. Great. If Phil builds an integration into there or somebody builds an integration into that, then you can just go in and say, hey, this is where I want to send this stuff. And there's functionality in there where you can actually say, hey, as part of the script, go in and send it off to Phil's cloud. So that's pretty cool. Right now, there's a few whatever's in there, but hopefully in February 2025 release, there should be some more.
Yeah, I think it's coming with just Nabukasa and local storage in this release. But Paulus did say that his bet is that there's going to be at least 4 providers by the February release. So hopefully Google Drive or somewhere, Amazon S3 or something, will be enabled for being a target location.
And if there's 3, then call Paulus at home and no, I'm kidding. Please don't creep Paulus. that is not okay. But so that, I mean, hopefully we'll see some of that stuff going on in there. And yeah, I'm pretty excited for that. I do back up my stuff, but when I had it on Docker, all of my Docker stuff was backed up onto my NAS anyways, which then gets backed up offsite and so on and so forth. But when I switched to the yellow, I manually had to back it up to my NAS and then, or not manually, but I had to add that as a target and then send it all there. But I'm pretty excited for this too, because now I'll actually have an extra location, and hopefully at some point, there might be a easy recovery from the Nabukasa cloud too. I don't think that's the case today, and I don't think there's any immediate plans for that, but that would be kind of cool.
So I don't have much to say about automated backups, apart from what you've already said, Rohan, but I do want to give a little shout out to another project. So I've been backing up my Docker containers. I run Docker containers everywhere. Home is a Docker container for me. So I will give a shout out to another Docker container or another app, open source project called Duplicati. I'll leave a link in the show notes. I have used Duplicati on all my servers for quite some time. And it is open source, so the UI is a little bit fiddly to work with, but it is rock solid. I have that thing backing up the data folders from my Docker containers, and they have integrations with everything: OneDrive, Dropbox, there's a whole list. You do have to, because it is open source, you'd have to roll a lot of the stuff for yourself. So you have to find API keys or tokens or OAuth apps and all that sometimes for some integrations, but I found it to be rock solid, and similar to the Home Assistant backup, you can choose frequencies, how much retention to have. Fantastic. So if chances are you have a lot of smart home stuff or smart home containers running around your house, I would recommend looking at Duplicati. It is really a set and forget thing. I do have health checks scripts running against it just so I know that the backups are running. But then once As long
Yeah.
as health checks don't fail, I don't think about it, and I'm backed up. So yeah, a little shout out for that project there.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
All right. So December 2024 was the month of what the heck for Home Assistant. So I think Frank mentioned it on our last episode, but if we'll catch up, what the heck? Every couple of years, Home Assistant runs a what the heck? Just put your problems in the forum and let's see if we can solve them. What is frustrating about using Home Assistant that we should be able to fix pretty quickly. So this month has been the busiest month for what the heck so far. And already there's been some great things fixed. So there was when you were creating an automation, you would hit the save button, you'll get a name and description, but there was no ability to add a label or a category to the automation until you actually backed out of the automation and then selected it from the drop-down list. Well, that's now been changed when you are creating an automation. When you hit the save button, that dialog will pop up, and you can also now assign a tag, assign a label to the automation as well. So that's a good one to be fixed. Home Assistant, I think it was last year or the year before, introduced hotkey support. So when you're on a computer, you could type C to bring up the command palette or quick launch bar, and E to bring up entities. That's now been extended. So D can now be used to launch a quick bar for device searches. So let's say you've got a motion sensor that has temperature, lux, and motion itself. You can hit D, type in the name of the motion sensor, and it will go to the device page. We can actually see all the related entities against that device. It's a nice, handy one. Yeah, the letter A can now be used to start typing to assist. So I don't know about you, Ryan, but I would always have to hit the voice the conversation button or something, and then it wasn't
Yeah.
selected properly. Yeah. But now you can just hit A on the keyboard and ask Home Assistant to do something for you, and Assist is there, ready to go.
Yeah,
The
I
big
like that.
one,
There's also this is not a new thing, right? It's an addition to what it was. You can always there's C to run a command or E to search entities. I believe so.
yes,
Yeah.
yep. I will say the big one that I found, and I have been frustrated by this a few times, is when you're creating or editing an automation in the UI and you navigate away from the automation editor, your changes were gone. They weren't saved. You weren't prompted, hey, are you sure you want to go away? Like, if you
Yeah.
want to lose this, that's been fixed. So the automation editor will now prevent you from navigating away and will prompt you, hey, do you want to save your changes before you leave this page? That is a big one. So thank you to whoever's fixed that. And when you're now talking to Assist and you're providing sentences, they can now have more context around them. So if you're having a conversation, you may ask your assistant, hey, what is the weight of this product? And then you might go, okay, what color is that product, or what color is it? The context will now provide it so that the assistant can go back and say, oh, you're actually talking about this product before. You must want to know what the color of it or the weight of it now is, essentially. So yeah, some really cool stuff coming out of what the heck. So yeah, that's fantastic.
That is cool. Yeah, some of the other things too. That is pretty cool too. And I really like this one. I know it's really it's not. I don't want to downplay it. It's not something you'll use every day, but it's actually awesome. So if you control or command and use your scroll wheel on your mouse, you can actually zoom in on graphs. So that's
Yes.
I don't know. So you can get a little more definition or a little less definition based on what you want to see. So I really like that, and that also works on timelines, from what I understand, because that's still a graph. Or sorry,
Yeah.
like the history piece, because that is still a graph. I
Pretty
might
sure
be
you can
wrong, but that
pinch to zoom as well if you're on a mobile. But I tell you
yeah,
what, those graphs, when I'm trying to look at history on my phone, like I have my alarm control panel, right? Like it'll go armed away, armed
yeah,
home, or whatever, right? And I want to be able to see like exactly where it changed for whatever reason. And when I'm looking at the history, it only shows a graph. So then I've got to like zoom in, but you can't get that exact. Like I can't see the time by hovering over it because it's too skinny of a slice of the graph. So yeah, having this like to be able to zoom in on a graph and then be able to find the time that it actually changed is fantastic.
yeah. No, it is. I don't know. I like it. Nice little useful change.
You can now choose to switch off exposing new entities to voice assistants by default. So previously, when you would add a device to Home Assistant, it would be exposed to those voice assistants by default. This one frustrated me all the time. Like if I was repairing something, or even like, oh yeah, I'm just testing out this, test sensor, or whatever. Bam, it's available in the Amazon Echo. Bam, available to assist. I'm like, oh, that's just created a whole bunch of confusion for me now. So yeah, can now be toggled off.
You can also now reorder individual devices in the energy dashboard. I don't use the energy dashboard today, but I think that is still pretty. For those of you that use it, that's probably pretty helpful. I think you use it, right, Phil? Do you?
I do a little bit, yeah. I think by reordering it will adjust the colors on the graph, but I don't think it's necessarily going to change too much else. I don't use it enough to want to reorder devices at this stage, but I think the energy dashboard is similar to Home Assistant in general. Right? The more you add to the energy dashboard, the more you want to add to the energy dashboard. Like,
Yeah,
I can just see like that. Ever since I think it was back in October or September, they added the unallocated bit so that we can actually see how much from total that you're using for the energy, but how much actually isn't being tracked. And I want to get that unallocated down so I can actually see where in the house everything is being used. So yeah,
it's going to be like one LED somewhere worth of power usage, and you're going to be like, oh, where is this? And you're going to spend like $5,000 to figure that out.
Yeah. But, like it just prompted now I want to go put a smart switch on my fridge, but then I'm like, oh, what if I accidentally turn that smart switch off? I just want to get more data in Home Assistant essentially.
But then now you need to get like a siren so that when that smart switch goes off, then your siren goes off saying, hey, you turn it off.
I don't trust my Home Assistant automations enough to put a siren on my house yet. But
yeah. All right. There's actually been somebody on my street whose siren's been going off daily. I don't know why. Once a day, just wah, wah, wah. Luckily it's during the day, so it's don't trust it.
Yeah. All right, media player. The tile card in Home Assistant, if you're using it against a media player, it now supports a little volume, so that looks nice.
Sweet. Images that are uploaded to Home Assistant can now be accessed via the media browser too. Doesn't need much explaining. It's pretty straightforward.
The logbook card has been updated and it now supports a target picker. So this one I didn't realize was a thing. I didn't realize there was a logbook card but it actually makes a lot of sense. So previously you could only choose like a single entity from the logbook card. Now they've updated that to support the target picker, which includes labels, areas, floors, entities, devices. So now you could have a logbook card on your dashboard, and if your dashboard is for a certain room, you could choose just that room, right? And then it will have logbook entities related just to that room. So I'm looking forward to doing something like that, right? Yeah.
Are you using labels a lot, Phil?
So my mission has been when I'm on a commute to work on the train, and usually I'm listening to a podcast or something, but I really want to get into labels. So my little productivity hack for being on the train at the moment is to go into Home Assistant and just start labeling things. That's
I love it.
Otherwise, I'm just going to be browsing the news or something on my phone, but I want to try and label as much as I can in Home Assistant. So then I can do stuff like this, right? When new features like logbook cards being supporting labels, I can do some fun stuff.
Yeah, I went through and relabeled all of my stuff. Even like Home Assistant, like the supervisor itself is labeled with Home Assistant, right?
All right.
So if I don't know, if I don't use that today, but if I ever need to do something with that, I can, right? And the same with the Zigbee controllers labeled as Home Assistant. Like I don't know, like or like Home Assistant Core or whatever, right? Like, but I love labels. I use it in my automations. I use it in a bunch of stuff.
So I'm curious to know. So categories, so everything can have a category or a label or both. And categories are a one-to-one relationship, so one can only be assigned to one category. But labels are a one-to-many, so you can have multiple labels against something. What's your strategy in terms of labeling versus categorizing things? So I've run into the situation where I've categorized something as, like life automation, but then also, I also want a label for life automation, right? Or where would I put that? Like, does it become a category or is it a label? Like, Yeah, I'd be interested to know what's your organization strategy around how you do labels and categories.
So my entities, devices and entities get a label, right? So for example, I might have a device that might have, like, I'll use Ecobee for example. So in my Ecobee integration, I've got, obviously a couple of the little temperature sensor things, presence sensor things that they have. And they're set to an area, right? So like my bedroom one is labeled bedroom. I've also got a label saying bedroom, right? So, but that can also encompass all bedrooms, right? Not necessarily the primary or any other guest bedroom or whatever. Um, and then now I can start targeting all that stuff. I use categories only in automations, and my categories are honestly like production, testing, and
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
actually just that. So if something's moved after production, I know it's gonna work pretty much 100% of the time, right? Like, hey, like send an alert when there's motion detected in whatever room, right? That one's pretty straightforward. I test it a few times. I leave it there for like a week or a month or whenever I remember to move it up, honestly, and then I'll move it up. But that's pretty much how I do that. But other than that's the only thing I really use categories for. Um, but I do like kind of what you said about like, hey, these are like life automations, or these are like, I don't know, like fridge automations, or like that kind of thing, right? Like, but I don't know. I just did prod and non-prod, and then I just label and emoji my automations because based on the emoji, I'll know like, hey, this has to do with lights and stuff. The other thing I actually label on my automations as well. I do label my automations as well, but I have like, this is a notification. So that way, if I want to know, like if I want to filter, like, hey, I'm getting these notifications and I don't remember which automation is coming from, I can just filter to that. And now I've just got a list of like, I don't know how many ever notification based automations I have. Right. So that's some strategies that I found that I like. Uh, Not necessarily that, that might not necessarily work for everybody, but that's how I use it, at least.
And if you want to get a bit more advanced with labels, you can check out the Spook custom integration from Frank, where the Spook integration allows you to dynamically, via service call, add and remove labels, even create labels on the fly, and then assign them to devices and other things around the place. So,
Oh,
yeah,
that's kind of cool. Didn't know that.
yeah, can get very fancy. I mean, good one would be, for example, just thinking off the top of my head, battery device, right? And the battery is running low. You could then get Spook to then add a battery needs replacement label to that device. And then in Home Assistant, you could
Ooh.
have, with the target picker, you could have on a dashboard, show me all the devices in this card that have the label battery needs replacing, and away you go.
I really like that. I might actually do exactly that. That is because I just did another round yesterday, actually, of walking around my house and
Yep.
replacing batteries and motion sensors.
Is that your New Year's sort of job, is it? Every 6 months, go around and change the batteries on all the devices? Yeah.
Or if I notice that something's dead, but I've also not had a lot of time in the last couple of months. So I had a couple of things that were a couple of my water sensors, and I think one of my motion sensors had batteries that were dead. So
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to get even more fancier, there's another custom component, Battery Notes, which has a repository of a whole bunch of devices out there already, and it will tell you which type of battery you need to replace it with, and can allow you to track when you last changed that battery as well.
strongly recommend that one. I think I told you about that one.
I think you did, yeah. Well, now I'm telling everyone else.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. I think this is me. So Starlink now has consumption sensors, so you can see how much Starlink you're consuming. There you go. Get that internet.
SwitchBot there is now the initial support for the SwitchBot relay switch, which must be a new product from SwitchBot, and there is also support for the BLE water leak sensors from SwitchBot as well. That's always handy.
Sweet. Unify, there's some basic AI ports support, which I actually have no idea what that means, but
Oh, can I tell you about this? I mean, I'm not a
please.
so I have always said like Unify was too expensive, whatever. think I've told you, Ron, but I've got my first unified gateway, right? Like, so all my internet is now running through a unified gateway. No Wi-Fi or anything. I'm still waiting for some Wi-Fi access points because it is expensive. I'm slowly upgrading. But I started looking. So I got the Gateway Max. It has a hard drive in it. It's the new Unify product. And as part of that, I'm running Protect with my one TP-Link Tapo camera that has RTSP support. Unify have just released the ability to support third-party cameras in their Protect system, but it doesn't come with the AI stuff that I was hoping for that Unify has. So there's no person detection, object detection, any of that stuff. Unify have released an AI port product, which allows you to then send your device feeds to this AI port. It will then watch those feeds, apply its Unify magic to it, to its person detection, and then push that feed through to Unify, which can then, but would basically allow you to see Unify alerts as if it was a proper Unify camera that had AI on board. So yeah, that's the AI port.
Neat. Okay. Did not know that. Yeah. All right. And there's also the get user keyring info service now for Unify Protect. So a couple of Unify updates there.
Yeah, that's cool. I wonder, like, because I've been going down the Unify rabbit hole, I'm wondering, is what people are using for Unify Protect in the home for, like, specifically around like access, right? Unify access, because I would love to be in a position where someone could scan their fingerprint and I would know who it was. And this is the problem with smart locks at the moment. There's the acquirer that can do that, but they don't tell you which fingerprint it was or which code it was, or it's got to integrate with HomeKit, or it's got to integrate with this, or it may not fit on the door. So yeah, I'd love to know if someone's using Unify Access, what data you can see. Are you using it with a Unify door lock? Are you using your own door lock, using Home Assistant to unlock another, maybe a Zigbee lock or something else? Yeah, reach out to me. I'd love to know that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And TP-Link, they now have support for pan and tilt on their cameras, which I think there's a little story around that in the community. Someone reached out to TP-Link with potentially a security vulnerability or something was wrong with their integration. And TP-Link sort of came to the party there and helped out. But at the end of the day, we have pan and tilt support for cameras. So that's good.
So let's talk about some new integrations. CookieDoo. Now there's that integration into the shopping list of Home Assistant. So there you go.
All right. eHeim, or EHEIM Digital, is an aquarium device that can now be linked with Home Assistant. So yeah, that's
nice. Cool. Maybe it's a hem. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
iTuran. So retrieve and use information from your iTuran equipped vehicle. I'm not sure what that is, but you can do it.
Nice. Ohm, or OME, you can get sensor information from those smart EV chargers, which is fantastic. Yeah, I don't have a smart EV, or I don't have an EV, or I don't have a smart EV either, but I love anything related to electric vehicle charging and how we can use that better.
And another one on the EV front, Peblar. So you can now control and monitor charging sessions of your Peblar EV charger.
All right, some non-backwards compatible changes coming into this version. LifeX, the options for color temp and Kelvin are no longer valid arguments for LifeX actions. You should please use the color temp Kelvin instead.
All right. Tesla fleet. So backstory is Tesla is moving their API to a pay-per-use model. Even the Tesla integrations, like the custom component and stuff, I actually saw a couple of hours ago that there is a GitHub issue saying, hey, Tesla's going to be charging for this and stuff. So this is targeted Tesla fleet, but it's probably going to affect more than that. So the included OAuth credentials have been removed as such because Tesla is not really going to support open source application registrations anymore. So it will be that pay-per-use model.
That's interesting. So as a person that hasn't bought a Tesla, my fantasy was to buy a Tesla for the integration with Home Assistant, obviously, right? Host of the Home Assistant podcast wants
only that reason, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I'm not going to be ashamed to admit that, right? Like that was one of my really admirable things about Tesla, right? Like, like not only did they bring out, really push the electric car market, but having that, the constant updates to the vehicles and the integration with Home Assistant, like, oh, wow, amazing. I've seen some dashboards, people with their car, lock status, wind the windows up, have the car pre-cooling, preheating. Now that's potentially all going away. Ryan, you do have a Tesla. I'd be interested to know, have you got your Tesla integrated with Home Assistant today? And is this something that's going to affect you moving forward?
Yes and yes. So yeah, I'm not looking forward to this. I don't know I haven't looked into what the prices are going to be or whatever. Um, I think if it's reasonable, like if it's a couple bucks every, I don't know, like year, uh, worth of calls, fine, right? Like, I don't know if it's like 10, 15 bucks and they say, hey, at $10 a year, 15 bucks a year, if it's going to be more than that, honestly, I can't justify that. I don't know. I don't love that they're doing this, but
Yeah, it's almost like the cloud strikes again here, right?
exactly right. They're not killing it. It is paid,
Mm.
so it is still an option. I am just not willing to throw money at it for whatever reason, right? I don't know, whatever I find reasonable. Maybe I'll look at the number and be like, okay, it's $5 a month. Maybe I'm willing to part with that. Honestly, I don't know if I would even do it for $5 a month, but
there was an integration in Home Assistant, Teslaretti or something, off the top of my head. We talked about it a few releases ago. That one was paid for out of the box. It is very deeply integrated into Home Assistant. The author of that app also wrote the integration into Home Assistant, but they decided to charge from the get-go, knowing that these fees were coming. I'd be interested to see if their pricing model that they came up with is still going to cover those costs, or if prices are going to have to go up for that product as well. Because I think there was like €5 or $5 a month for the basic access, and that's on top of when you buy a Tesla, I believe you get like a premium access that you pay a monthly subscription for as well if you want Spotify or something else in the car as
15
well.
bucks a month, I think is what that is Canadian, 15.
Yeah, right.
13, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So all that's up, right? It's just all these subscriptions slowly.
And that's it, right? Like for me, in my case, I do pay for that, right? It gives you like, I don't know, like gives you traffic updates on your GPS and like you said, Spotify and whatever. Basically, you're paying for the cellular data usage of the car, which I don't love that, but fine. There is a ton of value I get out of it. So, okay.
Yep.
I don't know if I can say the same about the integration. Don't get me wrong. I really do love that it's integrated. And Tesla Mate's a great add-on app as well that you can monitor a lot of stats and stuff like that. I'm sure that will also be affected. But yeah, I don't know if someone will find some way around it. I don't know. We'll see. I'd love to hear other folks' thoughts too. Just throw it in the comments on YouTube if you're watching there, or shoot us an email to feedback@houspodcast.io.
Yeah, for me, like the integration with Home Assistant was no other brand, no other EV car has such a deep integration as Tesla does. So that sort of gravitated me towards Tesla. But now with this going, it's sort of like, okay, well, if I'm going to get an EV, which not that I'm in the market for at the moment, but if I was going to get an EV, Tesla's not the front runner anymore, essentially.
I think there are a few. Like I mean, we see connected car integrations all the time, right? Like you see BMW, someone that comes off the top of my head. I want to say Audi's there too, and whatever, right? There's those kind of manufacturers. So I'm sure they do have that kind of integration to say, hey, turn on the heat or AC or whatever it is, right? Or I don't know, heated steering wheel, or open the windows or whatever. I'm not sure about other like EV only companies like maybe Lucid or one of those kind of folks, Rivian and those kind of guys. But for the ones that are there, I think there are still some other ones. So it's not just Tesla that has this in today. I'm not sure about the pricing model or anything like that for some of those other folks, but yeah.
Cool. All right. And finally, Unify Network, states of device state sensors have been standardized to match Home Assistant core rules and be translatable. So that means things like connected might now show as lowercase connected, which is state values that then can be translated into other languages. So yeah, I think we've had a few of those come in last year. Just a whole bunch of devices being upgraded for that. So now it's Unified's turn.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think there's other breaking changes. Be sure to check out the release notes for Home Assistant in case you are affected. These were just the highlights that I thought would affect most people. I think that's 2025 kicking off to a great year. Excited for what this year's going to be.
Perfect. Yeah. And I think that is our episode. Once again, we just as a reminder, we will be at CES this year, and looking forward to seeing what's going on there, and looking forward to sharing with you some of the stuff we've seen on there too. So
yeah, we might try and do a live show or something too on YouTube if our equipment plays nicely. So yeah, follow us on there.
Yeah,
release it to
keep
the
posted on our
channel.
socials, and we'll try and keep you updated there as well. Also wanted to give a shout out to Rob, our new Patreon member. So thank you, Rob, for supporting us and supporting the show.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rob. Cheers.
Cheers.